Hello and welcome to this online lesson. My name is Mr. Hoven, and today we're going to be starting our new unit, The United States Assumes Worldwide Responsibility, and we're going to be looking at the causes of World War II. So, let's go ahead and get started. And the first real reason or cause of World War II that we're going to look at is the rise of dictators, especially after World War I and during that 1920s, 1930s era, when different dictators rose to power and began creating tension throughout the world. The first individual we are going to look at is Benito Mussolini, and he ruled fascist Italy. And in 1919, he founded the Fascist Party. He stressed national prestige, the belief that Italy was the best nation, and that they were going to rule and take back lands that were rightfully theirs. And in office, he worked to destroy democracy and set up a dictatorship. Again, as you might have guessed, backed by the military. So that is Benito Mussolini. The next dictator that we're going to look at is a man by the name of Joseph Stalin, and he took over the USSR, or the Soviet Union, after the death of Vladimir Lenin. He became the new Soviet dictator and worked to industrialize his country. And he was, believe it or not, the Soviet Union at this time was an ally of the United States. However, he tolerated no opposition, and his efforts ended the lives of 8 to 10 million peasants. The whole phrase of being sent to the Gulag, or the work camps in the Soviet Union, which were thought to be more devastating and more dangerous than some of the work camps in Japan and the work camps set up by Nazi Germany during World War II. Interesting. Stalin is one of our allies at the time, and yet his practices led to the deaths of many more of his own people than what Adolf Hitler did to his people when he led Nazi Germany. Just interesting to think about. And the next dictator that we are going to look at is a man named as Adolf Hitler. And Adolf Hitler was the leader of Nazi Germany. He was very quick to make enemies, and he openly criticized the German government in the 1920s after serving in the German army during World War I. And because of his criticism, he is imprisoned, where he writes his very notoriously famous book, Mein Kampf, or My Struggle, where he lays out partially why Germany lost the First World War, and he puts most of the blame on the Jewish people living in Nazi Germany. After his release, he forms the Nazi Party, and he ignores the Versailles Treaty. Again, that was a treaty set up by the League of Nations in order to keep Germany in line and make them kind of pay war reparations and give up land that they gained during World War I. And he starts to offer work and bread to the Germans, so that promise of prosperity again, which has helped him rise to power. And by 1933, he assumes the title of Chancellor of Germany. And the next day, he declares himself dictator. Again, backed by the military. Hitler uses his strong public speaking skills as a way to convince people to follow him. If you are looking to become a great public speaker, or if you take a public speaking class in college, you may watch some of his videos of his speeches, because he was such a strong and enthusiastic public speaker, and he was able to get a lot of people to believe in him, his ideas, and his mission. And the final dictator that we are going to look at is a man by the name of Hideki Tojo. Some of you may not have heard of him before, but he was the leader of Japan as World War II began to start to sprout and begin. And he allied himself again with Benito Mussolini and Adolf Hitler when the war began. Most officers believe that Japan was destined to dominate East Asia. So his end goal, dominate East Asia, the trade, the land, and control everything. And many also believe that democracy was un-Japanese and bad for the country. Again, the military is now in control of Japan, and it's going to lead to tensions, which caused World War II. The next cause of World War II is this idea known as appeasement. And this is when one nation allows another nation to do as they please in an attempt to prevent war. The idea of, if I let him do this last thing, I'm sure he will stop. And as you see on this picture here, it says, remember, one more lollipop and you can all go home. And we're going to be looking at this picture along with others drawn by Dr. Seuss throughout the unit, because Dr. Seuss had a lot of very political cartoons that he submitted and created during World War II. So again, appeasement, giving in to someone and hoping to avoid conflict, kind of like giving in to that schoolyard bully, hopefully maybe they'll just leave me alone. But oftentimes, that just doesn't seem to happen. So some examples of appeasement during or leading up to World War II. Again, appeasement is the cause of World War II. Mussolini invades Ethiopia, Northern Africa, 1935, and there was no response. No one stood up to him. Well, if we let him invade this, maybe they won't do anything else. That's the thought. That's appeasing. Then Japan invaded China in 1937, and there was no response. No one stood up to them. They just let them do as they please. In 1933, Hitler begins ignoring the Treaty of Versailles, and there was no response. No one said anything. No one did anything. No one stood up to these bullies, to these men. Again, appeasement, keep giving in and giving in and giving in, hoping they'll stop. But they never really do. And in 1938, Hitler overtakes Austria and Czechoslovakia, and there was no response. And it was almost comical. Just like in the picture, it shows, and on this platform, the most amazing marvel of the age, he lives, he talks, yet he has no guts. And that is the appeaser. Again, appeasement, giving in to a country in order to avoid conflict. However, if you keep giving in, they're going to keep taking, and problems will arise. So another one of these causes of World War II was the Treaty of Versailles. And again, if we remember back from 2 units ago with World War I, the Treaty of Versailles required Germany to do 3 things. First, they had to take full responsibility for World War I. Even though they really didn't start it, they had to take responsibility for it. It required Germany to pay war reparations in millions of dollars. They had to pay for the whole war, even though they were only one of many countries involved. And it required Germany to give up its lands in the Rhineland and parts of Poland that it rightfully earned. Again, if you look at the picture on the left here, it says, you've got to swallow it whether you like it or not. And it's basically the peace terms being jammed down Germany's throat. And while it ended World War I, and it did, it directly led to the start of World War II. Again, in this picture, you see the Versailles Treaty and Hitler's party crawling out of it. This upsets Germany. Hitler detests the Treaty of Versailles, and it gives him motivation to talk to his people in Germany. Look what they're doing to us. Now it's our time to rise up and overthrow this treaty and take back what is ours. And if you remember back from when we talked about World War I, there were the main causes. Militarism, again, building up a nation's military, and it takes over all aspects of countries' politics. Imperialism, some countries, bigger, stronger countries taking over others for their own gain. Nationalism, belief that your country is the best. And alliances, allying yourself with different countries. And these were the very same long-term causes of World War I and World War II. They were similar. The only difference is the Allies and Central Powers looked a little bit different this time. The Allied powers, beginning World War II, was England, led by Winston Churchill, France by de Gaulle, the USSR, Soviet Union, by Joseph Stalin. But then you have the Central Powers. Germany, led by Adolf Hitler, Italy by Mussolini, and Japan by Tojo. And if you look, most of these individuals are dictators. Again, leading to problems. And finally, with all these causes kind of bearing down throughout the world, you've got the dictators that have risen to power, people appeasing, giving into other countries in order to avoid war, the Treaty of Versailles, the main causes. War is about to erupt. And World War II officially begins after Germany invades Poland in 1939. Germany uses blitzkrieg, or lightning-quick attacks, with their new technology, tanks, planes, and the like, to overwhelm European nations. And France and Russia, both nations quickly lose large sums of land to the Germans. So it's a lightning-fast attack, and already the Allies are back on their heels. Where was the U.S. in all of this? What was our position? Similar to World War I, the U.S. immediately declares a policy of neutrality at the outbreak of World War II because we're still in a deep depression. Keep that in mind. We're not out of the depression yet. And isolationists believe that fear of another European war. They're afraid of a new war happening. But as you see in this picture, we might not have been entirely neutral. But again, we want to stay out of foreign affairs, beliefs that we're going to be dragged into another European war, and we're still in a deep depression. We don't want to get involved in something we don't have the funds or the power to do so. So that about wraps things up for today. We talked about the causes of World War II, which were dictators rising to power, appeasement, Treaty of Versailles, and the main causes. We also looked at when World War II began. Hope you enjoyed it, and we'll see you next time.